What is up, everyone? Steven here from Techmaker Studio. This is building a decentralized Twitter clone with React.js and Aleph.im part 11. In this episode and potentially the next one, we're going to work on the actual theme here a bit. If you really don't care about styling and that sort of thing, you'll probably be able to just pull down the GitHub and get these changes. But realistically, I think this is useful for anybody who's doing any amount of front end, who's maybe not totally focused on just design. I'm going to show you kind of my quick hacks on how you can make stuff look cool without really spending a ton of time and energy on design. So before we jump into any code, I want to kind of talk through the method a bit. So one thing that I do rely on a fair amount is Dribble, and we'll pull up Dribble here. If you've never seen it before, it's really kind of a design hub. You can kind of come in here and search for anything that you want. So we could search for, like, if we were building a trading app, we could do like trading app. And then once this finishes loading, we could kind of come through and look at some different things and pull up some different themes that we think makes sense. Now, obviously, you never want to plagiarize anybody's stuff here. And if you're going to use something that's heavily inspired, you probably ought to give people credit. I don't really know what the exact system for that would be. But anyway, this is a cool place, in my opinion, just to find inspiration. And if you are trying to hire designers, this is a cool place to find designers. But anyway, so I did a search for Twitter, and I came across this, which doesn't look totally different than the real Twitter app. I mean, I think this may look like a slightly older version if I'm remembering correctly. And just to quickly give a shout out, this is by, I'm not going to say this correctly, Jeremias NJ for hello, HELLOW. Okay. Anyway, so I don't really think we're going to copy this design exactly, and obviously this is heavily influenced by the actual Twitter design. But what I want to look at here is, if we zoom in on this, if you want to design like a dark theme or something like that, or any kind of theme, you kind of have to look, and this is going to be super obvious to people who've done any kind of front-end work where you actually have to pay attention to design. But if you're kind of like a novice at doing anything front end, a lot of people will just like put up a dark background with like bright text on it, and it doesn't always look great. If you look at what's happening here, you have this dark background. This is probably like a super dark gray with a little bit of blue mixed in it, and then here you have like a slightly less dark gray on top of it, making these boxes. Actually, now that I'm talking out loud, I want to kind of highlight what I'm mentally doing. So what I'm trying to do, this is almost like a process for how to get inspired without plagiarizing. So I'm not going to keep this open. I'm basically looking at this to get a sense of things that I like, and then we're going to build everything sort of from scratch with some other elements, which we'll get to in a second. But I just want to point out like a bunch of little things that you could take note of mentally. So you have obviously the super dark background, the dark gray, but like significantly less dark gray boxes. Look at these buttons here. This is kind of interesting. So it's like another gray. It's a little bit less dark with all of the different icons for like liking and commenting and stuff. Interesting thing. And then I think, I don't think that's the same gray, but it's hard to tell. The actual box where you would type is a dark gray as well. If you look at another thing that's nice to notice is the font. It's not all white text. So you have like trends for you or trend for you, and then over here you have text that's kind of in a dark gray, and if I have to guess, it's pretty similar to one of those. So you get this sort of contrast where not everything pops out at you. And just a couple of other things. You notice we have at the top, we have these photo video. First of all, these are glowing, which is kind of interesting. There's like a little aura around the actual color, which I didn't notice until just now. But you have a mix of border radius. What's the plural of radius? I don't know. Radii? That sounds very strange. But there's different border radiuses around. So you have this looks like 15 pixels, 10 or 15 pixels. If you're just kind of eyeballing it, this looks a lot bigger, 20, 30 pixels around here. But it's all pretty heavily curved, which I like. If we look back over at what we were doing, it's all sort of like the default Bootstrap stuff as far as I remember. I bet this is like 4 or 5 pixels. So anyway, these are the things when you look at a design that you like that you need to take note of. So like, is it curved? Is it not? Is it flat? Is it gradient? All this kind of stuff. Right now we have this sort of purpley gradient, which I think I'm going to go away from and go toward more like something like this for the moment, and we may change it back later. I'm not sure yet. Don't hold me to that. What I want to do now is actually kind of get set up with a basic design that's not super overly specific to just what we're doing, that anybody could sort of take and manipulate how they want. That's kind of the idea here. So having said all of that, let's go ahead and close this down. Let's close this down. Let's look over here at something called Color Hunt. So they have different tags you can use. So if you're ever wanting to like colorize something, like you're trying to build a theme, the first thing I typically do, well, actually we talked about this in a previous episode, but what I often do is come over here to Materialize, css.com, and then just go to the color. So in my opinion, if you want to do things quickly, what you need to do is you want to restrict your set of options. If you can choose from every hex code on earth, you're going to spend way too long thinking about colors. So what I often do if I have to design any kind of app is I say, okay, it doesn't matter what your color set is, but you need to pick one, and it needs to restrict you within a certain boundary so that you spend less time worrying about if it's the exact shade of green. So I think I understand that this Materialize color theme comes from Google's material design. If it's not exactly, it's something close. But I'll a lot of times come in here, but this is even too broad for what we want to do. We want to keep a really, really narrow color theme right now. But ultimately, the point is, one of the first things I do when I'm designing something, pick a color palette. It doesn't have to be Materialized. There's plenty of other ones. Just do some Googling, pick a color palette, and just say, okay, this is what I'm using. And, then at least there's still a lot of options here, a lot of possibility, but at least it's less. So you kind of start by saying, okay, do we want to use like blue, green, purple, whatever? And then you kind of go from there. What I'm going to do this time is a bit different. I found this Color Hunt. I know that I want to do a dark theme, and I know that I need multiple sort of grays, and I need one to be real dark and another one to be less dark. So I was scrolling through here through the dark themes, and I found this one, and I think I'm gonna try this. What we're going to have to do realistically is probably add a couple other colors, which we can do pretty easily inside of VS Code, but this should serve as a good base. I think we'll probably end up with like, I want to say 6 or 7 kind of colors in our theme, and then white. So yeah, but let's try out with this and see how it goes. One thing to take note of is, if we look at, let's go to like actually Twitter. So if you look over here at the tweet button, you've got this like sort of what looks like a bright blue, but it's got a white font on it. And so one of the things we're going to have to play with is this color is so bright, we probably will have to put a black font on it in order to be able to really read it. Because if you put this blue on top of white, I suspect it's not all that bright compared to this sort of teal over here. I am thinking about, like, I don't want to use blue because it's Twitter, obviously, and then, depending on which blue, it's also Facebook and so on. I kind of like going with like a teal. I've got another project right now that I'm going with like a purple. So this is kind of different than anything that I'm doing right now. So I think I'm going to go with this, but I may have to play with this brightness just a little bit. Or we may have to go with the black text on top. Speaking of fonts, the other thing I'm going to do, and this video is getting longer than I thought, so I may actually cut this once we kind of make some final choices here. And then we'll do the actual build out in the next episode probably. Okay, so Google Fonts, the next thing, once I choose colors, the next thing you need to do is choose fonts. Now, again, like there's so many fonts, you could spend forever. What I'm typically doing if I'm building an app, you almost never see serif fonts in an app. You always see sans serif, which means like without the curls. So I don't know. I mean, if you are not familiar, this is serif, where you have like the little base, and sometimes you have like on the L, like you'll have the little thing on the top. And again, this isn't my thing. If you know fonts really well, you're probably like, what's he talking about saying like things and bases? There's probably an actual like nomenclature for what these little things are on the bottom of the letters, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. In any case, we're building an app. If you're building something like Medium, if you look at Medium, often so you can already see it on the top page. You have a serif font on the top mixed with sans serif throughout. If we go to an article, the headlines are all sans serif, and then the articles are serif. Serif tends to be kind of like, it looks like a newspaper or something. For our use case, after all that explanation, we're going to go with sans serif. And then you can kind of see, so you can sort by trending. And anyway, I mean, you can kind of, I think anytime you can impose rules on yourself that limits choices, is going to help you do things faster. So for example, you could say, all right, I'm just going to sort by trending, and then I'm going to pick something in the top 10 or 15 or whatever. This Noto Sans kind of caught my eye here. The one important thing when you're looking at fonts, and they have changed this up a little bit. So the one important thing, and you can see this if you look around on like Twitter. So you can see that you have like this Novavax, I guess a lot of COVID stuff is trending obviously right now. If you look above and below, the font weight on this trending in France thing is significantly lighter. Obviously the color is different, but obviously, sorry, that's too many obviously's in a sentence. The color is different, but you can also see that the font weight, these letters are thinner. You can see that as you look around, there's different font weights. I think notifications here, it's hard to tell with different font sizes and colors, but I would guess that this is almost kind of a medium font weight. This actual text font is probably sort of lighter, but I can see probably there's at least two, there may be 3 or 4 font weights on this screen right now. So Noto signs, I'm going to rule it out because we only have regular and bold, and I think this regular is already kind of heavy. So what I want to see, let's look at source signs. I tend to use source signs quite a bit lately. But so what I would do is come in and say, okay, we have a light, that looks good. How different is light and regular? That looks pretty good. So I would select the light, the regular, and I would probably skip semi-bold and go straight for bold. And then the black is going to be a little too heavy probably. So what I'm thinking to do is grab the light 300, regular 400. I don't know that we need italic yet. We can come back to that if we decide we want it. And then the bold. So that's most likely what I'm going to grab. I don't know, just eyeballing it. We may do 300, 400, and 600. I'm not sure yet. We'll play around with it. It's really easy to change if we get something set up and decide that it doesn't look right. But yeah, so that pretty much nails down the two big questions about like sort of design elements we need to bring in. So what are we going to do in the next episode? We're going to set up SCSS so that we can define colors as variables inside of our CSS file. And then we're going to hook all this up, and we're going to import the source sans pro. So I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Again, this is sort of more just me explaining my process, which I find it interesting. I hope you find it interesting. But with all of that said, I will see you in the next episode where we actually build all of this out, and I will talk to you there.